Hello and welcome to Barbershop Books story time. Today's story is called Pink and Say. Now, for those of you who are wondering what this book is about, it's actually a historical nonfiction text. This story is based on a true story. Now, for those of you who are wondering, what is this true story about? Well, it takes place during the Civil War. What in the world is the Civil War? Well, many years ago, our country, the United States, they were actually fighting against each other. Why? Well, that's a difficult kind of question. Well, as we read through this book, we're going to learn a little bit of information about why. Remember, this book is about history, and it's called Pink and Say. There are two characters you see on the cover, and it looks like they're reading a book. And on the back, you see an American flag, and you see some uniforms from some soldiers. So, this story, even just from the cover and the back cover, it lets us know a little bit about what this story is going to be about. Pink and Say. To the memory of Pincus Ailey. And look, on this page, you see a family, and they're sitting. And I think they're sad because somebody they love is going off to fight in a war. Do you know anyone who's in the service? Like the Army or the Marines or the Navy or the Air Force. Those are all called the armed services. And normally people just go to help their country. But sometimes if there's a war, well, then they may have to go away for long periods of time to make sure that they keep everybody in our country safe. So you can see this little boy, this young man right here, he's going off to go fight in the Civil War. Remember, this was something that happened a long time ago. And let's see what's happened on this page. When Sheldon Russell Curtis told this story to his daughter, Rosa, she kept every word in her heart and was to retell it many times over in her long lifetime. So this story is a story that was retold by someone and then retold by someone else. So it's like this story was passed down from parents to their children, from those parents to their children. Sheldon had been injured in a fierce battle and was left for dead in a murky pasture somewhere in Georgia. This book is a little scary. He was a mere lad of 15. So he was 15 years old when he had to go fight in the Civil War, and he got injured. And he was just sitting in a pasture, not sure what was going to happen to him. That's scary, to be alone and to be hurt and not to know if anyone is going to come to help you. Man, can you only imagine how scary that must have been for him? He lay there for 2 days, by his reckoning, only to slip into consciousness and fever. So he was really sick, and he was injured, and he was kind of going to sleep and then waking back up, and then going to sleep and then waking back up. Man, could you imagine being hurt and being all by yourself? Well, that's how this character Sheldon was. Let's see what happened. And for 2 days, he was rescued from this field by another lad who had also been separated from his company. Company is just the name of a group of soldiers. So there was a group of soldiers called a company. And then sometimes soldiers, for whatever reason, they get separated. And so this other soldier found him. I will tell it in his own words as nearly as I can. So this is a story told by Sheldon. There he is. And he told it to his children. And they told it to their children. And guess what? Now I'm going to tell this story. Well, I'm going to read this story to you. Oh, and if you look, Sheldon is going off to fight in the Civil War too. Now, for those of you who are just tuning in, the Civil War was a war that was fought a long, long time ago. And they were fighting to free black American slaves. So there were people who were enslaved and they were being freed. I watched the sun edge toward the center of the sky above me. I was hurt real bad. For almost a year, I'd been in the man's war, the war between the states. Being just a lad, I was wishing I was home. So this whole time, he was fighting in what he called the man's war, which is the Civil War, and he was not happy. He wanted to go home. He was only 15 years old. He was like, I shouldn't have to fight in a war. I should be able to be at home with my family. But at that time, the government was kind of making all the young guys, all the young men who were like 15 and older, making them go to war. So you can imagine how scary it must have been for someone who was so young. My leg burned and was angry from the lead ball that was lodged in it just above the knee. Oh man, so remember how he said he got hurt and we didn't even know how? Well, it looks like someone during the war must have shot in his direction and a little piece of lead must have hit his leg right above the knee. That's really scary. I felt sleepy and everything would go black. Remember when I said that he would go to sleep and then he would wake up? I think that's what he's talking about. I can only imagine how much that must have hurt. Remember, the Union soldiers, I don't think I said this before. There were two armies fighting during the Civil War. How many? Two. One of them was called the Union soldiers. They were from the North, and they were fighting really hard to free all of the people who were in the South. And the group of people in the South, well, those soldiers were called the Confederate soldiers. So there were two different armies. Union soldiers, they were in the North, and then there were the Confederate soldiers, they were in the South. Now, the Union soldiers, this is really, really important. The Union soldiers were fighting really hard to free all of the people who were being forced to work for no money. Can you imagine somebody making you work for no money? Well, that's exactly what was happening in the southern part, the South of the United States. There were all these people, a ton of people, and they were being forced to work and work and work for no money. How much money? Zero money. And so in the North, the Union soldiers said, you can't make those people work for free. You know what? We're going to go and we're going to free those people so that if they work, they have to be paid. So let's get back to our story. I wanted to go back to our farm in Ohio. And sometimes when I'd fall into one of them strange sleeps, I'd be with my ma tasting baking powder biscuits fresh off our wood stove. Now remember, this is a historical book, meaning that it's about history. It's something that happened. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to just try and remember that the things that they're going to talk about in the story may be from a long time ago. All right. So, like in this story, they used a wood stove. Have you ever used a wood stove? Probably not, unless you were like outside with a campfire. So in today's story, it's called Pink and Say. It's a story about two young boys who were soldiers. They were Union soldiers. One's name was Pincus, and the other name of this boy was Sheldon. Then I heard a voice. For a moment, I thought I was fever dreaming. But then I felt strong hands touch my brow, splash water in my face. So guess what? Sheldon was laying on the ground injured. And you can tell he was injured really, really bad. Can you see it? He was injured really bad. But then Pincus shows up. And he has water. And I think he's going to save him. Let's find out. Being here, boy, means you gotta be, whoa. He thought that he was dead, but he wasn't. He was still alive. He was just really, really injured. The voice said, as he gave him a drink of water from his kit, where you hit? Because if it's a belly hit, I gotta leave you here, he said. I had never seen a man like him so close before. His skin was the color of polished mahogany. Oh, Sheldon meant that he had never seen someone with brown skin before. I guess he must have lived in a place where there weren't many black people in his area. He was flying Union colors like me. My age, maybe. His voice was soothing and his help was good. Hit in the leg, I told him. Not bad. If it don't go green, can you put weight on it? He asked as he pulled me to my feet. We gotta keep moving. If we stay in one spot, marauders will find us. Marauders? Do you know what marauders are? Marauders are they're like thieves and like bad guys who run around looking for things to take and people to hurt. Marauders? No good. So Pincus said, well, we have to keep moving because we don't want any marauders to find us. Those were the bad people who were running around, stealing things and hurting people. Let's see. They riding, dragging, and looking for wounded. These marauders sound pretty scary. For those of you who are just tuning in to Barbershop Books story time, today's story is called Pink and Say. And it's a story about two young boys who were Union soldiers during the Civil War. That means a long time ago. So let's find out what's happening with these two characters in today's story. Remember, it's a historical story, meaning it's about history that happened a long time ago. Next thing I remember was collapsing in a heap on the ground and rocking with pain in my leg. Everything started to go black. Then I remember him pulling me up on his back. I heard him say, Lord have mercy, child. And look, here's a picture of Pincus giving Sheldon some water because he was hurt and he wanted to try and save him. And then here's the picture of him carrying him. Do you see? He's carrying him as far as he can because he's hurt. Lord have mercy, child. You as bad off as I am. I'll tote you. I can't rightly leave you here. So Pincus said, you know what? Even though you're hurt and I'm pretty tired myself, I'm still going to carry you as far as I can. Now remember, this is a true story. The soldier right here, he told this story to his children and they told it to their children. And I think they even told it to their children. And that's why we have this story today, because those children kept passing the story along. Let's see what happens next. I remember being pulled and carried and stumbled. I remember hard branches snapping back in my face. Psh! Wow. And mouths full of dirt as we hit the ground to keep from being seen. So every time they thought they saw marauders, they had to just hide to make sure that no one was around. Man, it must have been scary running and trying to make sure that no one would find them. I remember slogging through streams, hauling up small bluffs, and belly crawling through dry fields. Do you know what belly crawling? It's when you get on your belly and you crawl like this. So it seems like, man, they must have really gotten really dirty trying to make sure that they weren't seen. I remember these things in half sleep like, but I do remember being carried for a powerful long way. So guess what? Pincus was walking by. He saw this injured Union soldier because he was a Union soldier. And he said, you know what? I can't leave you here. I'm going to have to just carry you as far as I can. And look, here's a picture. It's a picture of Pincus carrying Sheldon. Do you see it? They're both injured a little bit. And Pincus, this is Pincus right here. And this is Sheldon. Remember, Sheldon was the one who was injured. And you can see that his knee right here is injured a little bit. Then fever must have took me good, because I could feel a cool, sweet smelling quilt next to my face. Soft, gentle, warm hands were stoking my head with a cool, wet rag cloth. Look at that morning that's coming, a woman's voice said as she spooned oat porridge into me. Do your mama know what a beautiful baby boy she has? Where am I? Sheldon thought he was dreaming because he was smelling food and smelling a clean blanket. Well, let's see what happened. Where am I? Is this heaven? I asked. She tossed her head and laughed. No, child. Pincus brung you home to me. Don't you remember? The mahogany child, I thought. Both you children been on the run for days, and a miracle God Almighty brung you both here. Yes, indeed, child, a miracle. I remember thinking, could this war have been so close to this lad's home? I couldn't imagine having a war right in his backyard. Well, guess what? That's exactly what happened. Pincus, there was a war that broke out, and he was one of the people who were being forced to work for no money. And he said, you know what? I'm going to go fight to free all the people that had to work for no money. And guess what? There were other soldiers. And sometimes the war was right in their backyard. So let's see what happens next. I looked over and saw him looking out the window light. What is that? Window light? Huh. Never heard of that word before. Window light. I'm going to have to look it up to figure out what it is. Guess you don't remember much, he said. I'm Pincus Ailey. Fought for the 48 Colored. 48 Colored? Oh, I think that's a group of soldiers during the Civil War. Found you after I got lost from my company. Remember, a company is like a group of soldiers. My name is Sheldon Curtis, I said weakly. This is my mother, sweet Momo Bay, he said as he smiled at me. And look, here's Sheldon right here. Here's Momo Bay, that's Pincus' mother, and here's Pincus. And so remember, Pincus found Sheldon in a pasture, injured, and he brought him home to help him. Let's see what his mother says. Lord, Lord, I never thought I'd see my dear boy again, she said as she hugged him. I've been getting along though, Pincus. Warm things got left in the big house when the family left. Dry goods too. The rest I've been getting from the woods. So Pincus's mother, she knew how to go into the woods, into the forest, and find things that they could eat or things that they could use to help them to stay alive and to stay healthy. Days are good too. The rest I've been getting from the woods. There's a freshwater spring. Still have some chickens. Even got an old cow out back that still gives. I think she means it still gives milk. And so she has chickens, she has milk, and she has some different types of food that she can eat. So sounds like Pincus's mother has been doing okay. Even though there's been a war going on. Do you remember what that war was called? It's called the Civil War. Remember, that was the United States. It was the North. That's where the Union soldiers were. And they were fighting against the Confederate soldiers in the South. And why were they fighting? Because in the South, the Confederate soldiers wanted people to keep working for free. And not just any people, but all of the black people that were living in the South. They were trying to make them work for free for no money. Do you think that people should work for no money? I don't think so. If you have a job and you work, I think you should get paid for the work that you do. And that's exactly what all of the Union soldiers in the North believed. And so they were fighting to make sure that all those people who were being forced to work for no money, that they had an opportunity to be free and to be paid if they work. So I'm going to read just 2 more pages, and then we're going to continue this story on Friday. Let's keep going. Then you have been all alone here? Pincus asked his mother. Where is everybody? Your daddy runned off to fight a month ago. All the hands and their children runned off out of harm's way, but I stayed. I prayed to the Lord every day. My prayers were surely answered because he brought my baby back here to stay. So everybody else in the house left because of the war. They wanted to be safe. And they didn't want to be in the way if there was fighting that started. But guess what? Pincus's mother, she didn't leave. She stayed in the house. Why? Because she thought that Pincus would return and come back. And she wanted to make sure that she was there if Pincus returned. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. He returned. Well, let's keep on reading. You ain't never gonna leave your mama again, are you, child? She said softly. Pincus looked troubled and didn't answer. I'm going down to the stream and pound these clothes of yours, she said as she ready to leave us. If you hear marauders coming, get for the root cellar door. So, remember early in the story, we said the marauders were thieves and other people who were looking for things that they could take and people they could hurt. So his mother said, if you hear marauders, you run and get in the root cellar. What in the world is a root cellar? Well, a root cellar is a place where you store roots like potatoes or carrots, or sometimes you can even store jam, like jelly. You can store all those things in the root cellar and it will keep them safe from getting spoiled because the temperature will keep things nice and cool without them getting hot. So it's a space under the ground. So you lift up the floor and then you can kind of climb under the floor into the root cellar. So Pincus's mother said, if you hear marauders, you run and hide in the root cellar. For those of you who are just tuning in to Barbershop Books Storytime, we are reading a story called Pink and Say. And this is a story about the Civil War and two Union soldiers, Pincus and Sheldon, and how, well, it's about how they survived and what happened to them. This was a story that was passed down from Sheldon. He passed it down to his children, and they passed this story down to their children. And guess what? I'm telling you this story today. His mother said she was going to go down to the stream and pound the clothes. Well, guess what? A long time ago, before there were washing machines, that's how some people wash their clothes, is they would take their clothes down to the stream and they would pound them with rocks and with cleaning powder. And that's how they would get the clothes clean. And so Pincus's mother was going to go down to the stream to wash their clothes. Marauders here, Pincus said with alarm. They've seen there's nothing here for them, child. Nothing. Pincus was scared because he was like, oh no, there's marauders near our house. And his mother said, don't worry. They've seen that there's nothing here, so they keep on moving. You have nothing to worry about. And here's Pincus's mother talking to him. She's so happy that he came back safe. And it looked like maybe she's making something. Like she's sewing something, because I see a needle and I see some thread. I wonder what she's sewing. I don't know. So this is the last page that I'm going to read for today. We're going to pick up the story tomorrow. As soon as she left us, Pincus sank to my bedside. Sheldon boy, he whispered, as soon as you heal up, we got to get away from here. We are putting Momo Bay in great danger by being here. I wonder why he said that. Maybe because if they were there, the marauders would come? I don't know. But all I know is that Pincus wants to make sure his mom is safe. So he told Sheldon, hey man, as soon as you get healthy, we got to get out of here. I wonder what Sheldon is going to say. If they come and find that she's been holding troopers, then his voice trade off. We got to get back to our outfits if we can find them. And when he said outfits, he mean company. Remember the group of soldiers? Because these two Union soldiers, they got lost from their company. You mean back to the war? I asked. This is Sheldon telling the story. I must have gone pale as he went on to say, it's the only way, ain't it? Then he looked at me. Sheldon, you all right? You look bothered, he said as he eased me back. You can call me Say, I said. So instead of Sheldon, he said, you can call me Say. Cool. I expect you're my family now. Near enough, he said as he chucked the blanket under my feet. You can call me Pink, he said softly as he smiled. So Pincus is right here. He said, you can call me Pink instead of Pincus. And Sheldon is right here. And he said, you can call me Say instead of Sheldon. And I think that's the reason this book is called Pink and Say. All right, maybe one more page. For the next week, Momo Bay fed us both up good. So his mom was cooking some good food. Raw milk and cornbread never tasted so good in all my born days. It were the first time in months my vitals didn't have my victuals didn't have any mealy worms in it. Ew! His food had worms in it. I guess he didn't have any other food to eat. When you're in a war, I guess you just have to eat whatever you can. She saw to it that I tried to walk a little every day so that mean-looking leg don't go stiff on you and cripple up, she'd say. This place wasn't that much different from our farmhouse in Ohio. More poor maybe, but it smelled the same, like pine boards and good cooking. A mess of beans with salt pork, cornbread, greens, and onions. This story is starting to make me hungry. I haven't even eaten breakfast or lunch. I think I'm going to have to eat after listening to all this good food. Did you hear that? Beans, salted pork, cornbread, greens, onions. Man, I bet that tasted so good, especially if you've been at war for months and months and you were only eating like food that had like worms in it. Ew! Man, you know, war is not a good thing. Whenever there's any type of war anywhere in the world, people get hurt. And it's not really easy or nice for the soldiers. Let's see what happens here next. When we slept, she sat near us, stoked the fire, and watched over us. Never thought I'd feel safe enough to sleep deep again. My mother and Kalo, my father, jumped the broom on this very spot, Pink said as he walked me on my first day outdoors. So when he said that his mom and his dad jumped the broom, he means they got married. Because a long, long time ago, all of those people who had to work for no money, the only way they could get married was by jumping a broom. And so it was a tradition of their culture. Whenever they were ready to get married, they would bring everybody, all their friends and family around that they love, and then they would have a ceremony where they would jump a broom, and then, boop, they would be married. Now people have to get like paper from the court and all this other stuff. But a long time ago, all you had to do was just, bloop, jump over the broom. So, let's see what happens next. And that there was the master's house, Master Ailey. Pink spoke quietly as he helped me along. How come you have his last name, I asked. Boy, when you owned, you ain't got no name of your own. Even Kalo had to take that name. So what Pincus was saying was that I guess when he had to work for free, the people who owned him, he had to keep their name, which I'm sure did not make him feel good. And here's a picture of the house where they're staying. Do you see it? It's right here. And then here's the house where everyone else used to stay. It was a big house, but as you can see, it's been burned all the way down from the war. So that's all we're going to read for today. That's part 1 of the story, Pink and Say. I'm going to pick up the story on Friday. Thank you so much for listening to Barbershop Book Storytime. Today's story is a really kind of sad story, but it's a really important story about a moment in history called the Civil War. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn more information about Barbershop Books, you can visit our website at barbershopbooks.org. You can also connect with us on social media at Barbershop Books. Until next time, bye.